Okay, so here we go. Um, I've already learned something. I've learned that these videos don't let me record for longer than 15 minutes. So that's really good news for you guys. You don't have to listen uh, to this face for longer than 15 minutes at a time. It just all of a sudden stopped my last one, so I ended up cutting it back down and realizing we'll just do this in parts, and I think that will be better. So they'll be labeled appropriately, all right, and you'll know exactly when it's time to take each quiz. Okay, so this is going to be part one of quiz 7. All right, part one is the introduction to our third altered state of consciousness, which is sleep. All right, so here we go. Like I usually do, here's our definition. All right, the definition of sleep states a natural state of rest characterized by a reduction in body movements and awareness. My favorite word in that is natural. Okay? We don't have to learn how to sleep. It's a natural behavior. Call it even a primary motivation, perhaps. No one teaches us how to sleep. All right. Moments after we're born, we take our first nap, and um, from that point on, all right, it just again is something that happens naturally. Okay. To give you an idea of what we're getting ready to talk about, how important it is. All right. This altered state is so um, important, so popular that we actually spend about 1/3 of our life asleep. Okay, and when you put it that way, um, it makes people feel one of two ways. One is I wish it was more, right? Only 1/3 of my time is spent sleeping. I could use a whole lot more. That's one way to look at it. Or some people look at it and go, man, I'm missing out on 1/3 of my life. Well, try to think of it like this. In order to enjoy the other 2/3 of your life, having that 1/3 of it being in a state of rest is probably necessary. And if you think about it, it averages out to about 8 hours a day. All right, you average 8 hours of sleep every 24 hours. Over the course of a person's life, it comes out to 1/3. Okay, you were sleeping, we were sleeping way more when we were little. Okay, some of us were getting as many as 16 hours of sleep per day. Now we're lucky if we hit that 8 hour mark. All right, sadly, all right, as I'll explain later, sleep and the hours of sleep only seems to get worse with age. So take advantage of the sleep that you're getting now. All right. All right. Back to that definition. What happens when we finally do go into this altered state? Our body slows down. That's the reduction in body movements, and we don't hear that TV anymore. We don't hear that cell phone chime anymore. We are now in an altered state. Okay. Um, to start off with another key term, when we talk about sleep, we need to make sure everyone understands that we have what's called a circadian rhythm or a biological clock. All right, this is a cycle. All right, that thankfully we don't have to worry too much about. It is in charge of turning on and shutting off various mechanisms throughout a 24-hour day. All right, we don't realize it. Like I said, sometimes you might realize it on a Saturday morning when your eyes just pop open, right? Around the time you get up during the school week because you've trained that clock. That's why we call it a rhythm. Um, but thankfully, at your age, you guys can get back to sleep and sleep till noon or 1. Uh, but aside from that, you don't really have to worry about it. Okay, and thankfully, it's these types of things I'm talking about. You don't have to worry about your metabolism, your stomach acidity, blood pressure, body temperature, etc. Okay. One area that I do want to draw a little more attention to are a couple hormones that change throughout a 24-hour day. All right. And examples would be, let's start with this guy here, epinephrine. All right. If you're kind of wondering what does really contribute to popping your eyes open every morning is epinephrine. All right, it says here it causes our bodies to go on alert, and it continues to cause us to be in a state of alertness until about 10 or 11 a.m. when it seems to peak. So arguably, if you're getting a good night's sleep, you should be getting your best work accomplished in the morning hours. Again, that's if you're getting good sleep the night before. If you're not, this can get thrown all out of whack because you're disturbing your rhythm. All right. As a teacher, as a coach, my best classes, my best practices in soccer are in the morning. Okay, because as you get later in the day, guys get more drowsy, more tired, right, and less focused. Okay, and that's partially because epinephrine is weakening, and this guy is starting to show up. All right, and that's melatonin. Call it our body's natural sleep pill. This is what gets our eyes heavy, yawning, all right, and eventually contributes to putting us to sleep. Okay, you might have heard of this before because it's available over the counter for people with insomnia and insomnia symptoms, which we'll get into later. So every 24 hours, these two guys take turns. All right, so it's about 11 o'clock when I'm making this video. So my epinephrine is or should be peaking. Okay, from this point on, it's just going to get a little less. My body's going to release less and less, less and less. And here, all right, by late afternoon, late evening, the other guy, melatonin, is gonna become much more potent and eventually make me want to seek out my bed. Okay, that would be the two hormones that are critical, all right, in this altered state. Okay. Another, if you want a quick example, guys, of how our biological clock can be disturbed, it's through jet lag. Okay, and just a real quick look at what jet lag is. Jet lag is when a lot of times when you travel great distances, like internationally, and the time it is when you land in that destination city is not the same time your body thinks it is. So take, for example, you're heading to London for a big meeting and you leave St. Louis at 6:30 p.m. tonight. Well, when you land in London, those clocks in London are going to say 8:30 a.m. So that means London's awake. They are ready to start that day. Everybody is up and alert, ready to go. You, however, probably aren't. Okay, if you look at the duration of the flight, it's 8 hours. That means your body would think it's 2:30 in the morning. That's jet lag. So melatonin is still pretty strong. Epinephrine hasn't started to wake you up yet. So that first day of being in that foreign city can feel very zombie-like. A lot of people who do travel internationally often say that that first day is wasted because they're so drowsy. So again, that's one example of you getting to learn that, hey, you do have a clock, all right, and it can be disturbed, all right, with unorthodox sleep patterns, let's say. What happens if you do get jet lagged? You can see here people have experienced diet issues. They're hungry at odd times. Other health problems, including insomnia, drowsiness, and then poor attention and concentration. That's why a lot of times professional athletes will go overseas weeks in advance, not just to get more practice, but to let their biological clocks sync up with that that destination city that they're in, so that at their peak level of performance come tournament time. All right. Okay, so there's an introduction into sleep. All right. Before we get into what happens in a night's sleep, let's go over what's the point. Okay, you can probably answer this pretty easily. Why do we need sleep? Well, we need sleep much like our phones and our laptops need a charger. Okay, throughout the day sometimes, but definitely at night, we got to plug those devices into a charger. Same thing with sleep. Sleep is our body's charger. It's a way to replenish the chemicals we're using up right now during the waking hours. Okay, so if you don't charge your laptops at night, if you don't get good sleep, the laptop doesn't work properly the next day. Okay, you guys would know that if you've ever pulled like an all-nighter, for example. Another important reason for sleep, especially when we're babies, is it allows our brain to literally grow. It's like watering a plant. If babies are deprived of sleep, unfortunately, this can happen. All right, it can lead to, again, poor dieting, which leads to issues in becoming overweight, learning disabilities, and attention span. That's what the research tells us. Okay, how do we study sleep? All right, the information I'm about to share with you was discovered in sleep studies. All right, psychologists don't go to people's homes and watch them sleep. That would be creepy, right? So you are able to go to sleep centers, sleep labs, and get possibly even paid to sleep. How nice would that be? All right. The problem is you'll probably have devices hooked up to you, much like you see this picture here. All right, this lady with a a device attached to her face to measure maybe oxygen intake. All right, and what it's likely to happen is, as you see in that first bullet point, the lab setting can really mess with your ability to get good sleep. Right, that's the disadvantage of a lab is it's not natural. So it can be difficult to collect data sometimes. As a matter of fact, psychologists call it the first night effect. This is an instinctive protective mechanism that I think is pretty cool. A lot of our animal relatives have this as well. Whenever we are in a new place, a foreign environment, a hotel, a buddy's house, all right, we often don't sleep very well that first night because we're not familiar with our surroundings. And so these types of research studies have told us that the left side actually stays awake a little more than the right side of our brain. Remember the hemispheres we talked about before? Just like a security alarm, our left brain, the the logical, right, intuitive side, seems to be a little bit more awake, just in case there's anything dangerous. So that first night is often referred to as the first night effect, and data from that first night often gets thrown out. So sleep studies typically take multiple days to get accurate data. All right, all right. Um, that's going to end, I think, part one. When we resume here, part two, we'll go through all of our stages of sleep.